All right, now we're going to go over lines 494 to 578 in Book 1 of the Aeneid, in which obviously Aeneas is enveloped in the cloud and he's at the temple, the one that has all of the murals of the Trojan War and himself and his friends all painted on it, and he sees Dido show up and the men that he had not known the fate of. Remember that he crashed out with 7 of the 20 ships, and 12 of the 20 also crashed out, but at a different location. And Aeneas has no idea as to whether they sank or whether they actually made landfall like him and his men. But nevertheless, he's going to see them then walk up and address Dido. And we see the results therein. So, starting at 494. While these miraculous things, nominative plural, he, hi, hike, are seen by Dardanian Aeneas, and again, this is our dative of agent. Usually a dative of agent is only going to be used with a future passive periphrastic, but in poetry you have a dative of agent with every kind of passive expression instead of what we'd expect usually an ablative of agent, which would be a and ya. So while these things, these amazing things, these things about to be amazed at, are seen by Dardanian Aeneas, while he gapes, stupeo stupere, and having been fixed in one gaze, aptutu, he hairets, he sticks. So having been fixed in one gaze, he sticks there, as in he can't rip him and himself away from staring at the murals on the wall, because remember, the temple that he is looking at is the temple that has been decorated with scenes of the Trojan War and his own image. While he does all of that, while he's gaping, the queen came in, perfect tense, in cato catere kesi, so perfect, a perfect stem and a perfect ending. The queen came into the temple. Who was that queen? And a positive. Dido, most beautiful in her form. Another ablative of specification in which it specifies the way in which is most beautiful. Ablative absolute then, with a large coterie, crowd, squad of youths. That is, of course, genitive plural, packing around. A crowd packing around. Stipo, stipare. Now we have, just like with the bee simile, a simile started by qualis, and it is here then modifying Diana. So, just like Diana, or what sort of Diana works or exercises the choristers. The choristers are the group of kind of like groupies, if you would like, that are going to attend and wait upon Diana and always be with her as a part of her squad. So what sort of Diana exercises the choristers on the riverbanks? We get the word riparian from ripa ripai of the Eurota River, or through the ridges, periuga of Mount Cynthus. Diana, whom 1,000 Oreads. These are, of course, hill nymphs, nymphs of the countryside and particularly hills. Diana, remember, is the goddess of the hunt and is always out in nature, especially in the forests. So whom, Diana, whom 1,000 Oreads, having followed, perfect passive looking participle, sequor, sequi, so not having been, but having followed. They, those nymphs, having followed whom, they glomerantor, they pack around, they gloop around. Over here, hink, and over here, hink. And that one, referring obviously to Diana, she carries a quiver, a pharetram, on her shoulder, umero, which of course is where we get the word humerus bone, that is going up to the shoulder, and going, present active participle, gradior gradi gressisum, she surpasses, supereminent, she is beyond all goddesses. And the joys, gaudia, gaudium, gaudii would be the nominative and the genitive, they temp-top, pair temp-top, they stir the silent heart, either for Latona or of Latona. Pectus, chest, but here it means heart. And this, of course, is Diana's mother. Latona, the Latin, Leto, the Greek, and she is the mother, Leto is, or Latona, of the twins Diana and Apollo, or the Greeks, or Artemis and Apollo. So, in line 503, we see the word talus, and that word talus is telling to us that the simile is over. And so, it is qualis beginning the simile, talus is then ending the simile. What sort? That sort. Talus, such was Dido, and it tells us obviously the comparison was Dido and Diana. Such was Dido, in such a way, or talium, she, the happy one, was carrying herself such a way, through the middles. She insto instare, pressing on for the work, and for the dative kingdoms, the ones, future active participle, about to be. Then, and this word psypta, she having been enveloped. We had psyptus a minute ago, psyptus nebula for Aeneas, and that is, of course, having been enveloped, having been enclosed by arms, and having leaned upon, perfect passive looking participle, it is deponent, highly on the throne, having leaned on the throne highly, she sat down at the doors, because of from in on, at the doors of the goddess, meaning the temple, in the middle turtle shell. It is the middle vault of the temple. So there she's going to be right in the middle, of course, the focus of attention and the like. So in line 507, Jura dabat. She was giving, do, dare, dedidatis, laws or rights, Jura. And that's, of course, accusative plural neuter. And laws to the men. So she was giving rights and laws to the men. They are the ones that are obviously the indirect object dative receiving the direct objects. And she was equaling out the labor of the works. Remember, this is a third declension. The word is opus, comma, operis for the genitive, telling me it's a third declension. And whenever you have a third declension word whose nominative ends with the letters us, not an ending, but ends with us, then it is a neuter word, most likely. She was equaling out the labor of the works in just parts, because of from in on at, or she was dragging them by lot. It shows that she's truly a equal and fair ruler in that she is not overburdening one section of the population and not giving the bad jobs only to some people and the good jobs to others. She was dragging them out by lot if she could not make it equal. When cum, suddenly Aeneas sees. Now this is when specific time, because when you have a cum clause with an indicative specificity, it is going to be talking about a specific time when, whereas if it were, of course, a subjunctive, it'd be the more generalized, non-specific circumstances. So, when suddenly Aeneas sees that accusative Antheus, it's a Greek word, so it looks weird, and Sergestus, and strong Cloanthus, and the others of the Teucrians, he sees that all of those accusative subjects approach. Cato, catere, casi, casus. I say it so many times and yet we don't remember it. It means to go and there with an odd go toward approach. Approach in with a large crowd. Those others of the Teucrians, whom the black whirlwind, the black tornado, or the dark tornado, ater, atra, atrum, dark or black, had scattered, dispulerat, pluperfect, on the sea, the levelness, and deeply, penitus, had carried away, awakes, erat, weho, were, wexi, wectus, to accusative other shores. He himself, this being, of course, referring to Aeneas, at the same time, he abstipio, stipere, is going to be stupio, stupere, essentially, but you put a prefix on the front of it, and it will often make it to where the letter is going to change. So this used to be stupeo instead of stipio. That prefix O turns it from U to I. So he himself, at the same time, or together, he gaped, and at the same time, Achates, remember the best buddy that is also enveloped in cloud, having been struck both by happiness, ablative, and by fear, ablative, he also, Achates, gaped, the one at the same time struck by happiness and fear. Happiness because he sees that his fellow comrades, whom he had not known the fate, those other 12 ships who had crashed out apparently somewhere else, that they are alive, but the fear, are they about to be summarily slaughtered right now on the spot by, of course, Dido and all of the guards and others that are surrounding Dido. Avid, eager, they were burning to join right hands. They want to go and hug their friends, but the unknown thing disturbs their minds. It, of course, rattles their minds. They remain hidden, dissimulant, and they speculantur, a deponent verb, speculor, speculare, watch to see, essentially, like they view to see. They, the ones amicti, having been enveloped by the hollow cloud, they watch to see, they view to see what fortune there is for the men. This would include a sit verb, not est, indicative, but sit subjunctive. Indicative, sum es est, sumus estis sunt. Subjunctive, sim sis sit. And it is a subjunctive because this is an indirect question. It is being reported, not asked. The direct question would be, what fortune is there? Whereas here we're saying they look to see what fortune there is. Is there? Ask the question directly in English. There is. In English, we change the word order. In Latin, you go from indicative for direct question to subjunctive for indirect question. They look to see what fortune there is for the men. On what shore do they look to see? On what shore? They leave behind the fleet. This is linquo linquere, or re linquo linquere. We fear a giant liar, so a subjunctive again, because another indirect question. And what reason? Quid. Quid in, of course, poetry very often can mean why. What reason or why they come. And again, subjunctive. We fear a giant liar. That is there. For the ones having been chosen, and that would be these men who are obviously there representing the Trojans of those 12 ships to Dido, for having been chosen from, ablative, all the ships, Kunti, chapter 13, I think, in Eckermani is introduced, they were going, they, orantes, begging favor, begging assistance. Do not confuse this noun, venia, veniae, with the verb venio, and of course, venire. They look incredibly similar, but this is of course the verb to come, whereas this means favor, assistance, or something of that nature. And so, begging favor, and they were seeking peto, petere, petivi, petitus, the temple, with a shout. And so here, obviously, Aeneas sees all of what's going on in the complete anonymity of being enveloped in that cloud of Mikti Nube Kawa. And he's curious to see what's going to go down and where these men, these 12 ships, have obviously made landfall. And he sees that the men are obviously there looking for some help from Dido and the Trojans.